Call this Budget Review Committee meeting of January the 29th to order. First order of business will be the Pledge of Allegiance. Would all please stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's have the roll call, please.
Mr. Napier?
Here.
Mr. Herlihy?
Here.
Mr. Hoffman?
Here.
Mr. Hall?
Here.
Ms. Ring?
Here.
Ms. Veet?
Here.
We
Mr.
got
Frank
Michael.
I'm
is
sorry.
here.
I'm sorry. Mr. Frank?
Here.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay, now the introduction to members. Ken, do you do that, or do we each introduce ourselves?
I can kind of summarize. All of you pretty much know each other. Nancy, I think, is the only one that didn't serve by the end of last
Services Department, I'm sorry. So we welcome Nancy. I know she's going to be a lot of good insight on how we do our internal finance and accounting. I don't think she'll be too rough on me. She's got a lot of, there's a lot of the skeletons in my closet probably, but I look forward to working with her because she is top notch. And other than that, we do have the one at-large member vacancy as well as an alternate member vacancy.
But this way, all 7 members can vote. Because we don't have...
With tonight's structure, it would
Right.
be all 7, yes. That's all.
We seem to be having technical glitches. Is there something wrong here? The thing... Mine keeps bouncing and... Are we okay here? He's okay. Okay, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, is the selection of a chairperson. Did you turn it off, Bruce? You good now?
Yep, we're good.
Okay, selection of a chairperson. Floor is open for nominations.
I nominate you for another term. Larry Napier.
Thank you. Any other nominations?
I would like to nominate Ed as chair.
Motion dies for lack of a second. Let's take a vote. All those in favor of me being the chairman signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
6-1.
I'm an alternate.
What's that?
I'm the alternate. I don't vote. Oh, we
Well,
did
you do
tonight.
because we don't have a second council appointee here.
Oh, okay.
So you will get the vote. As long as, but if that person shows up, then you won't.
Okay.
Because what we're doing, we take 7 votes. We're allowed to have 7 votes. And all of the members don't get a vote unless one of the at-large members is not here. Okay? Now the floor is open for nominations for vice chairperson.
I'll nominate Ed Earl.
I nominate Frank.
Mr. Hoffman.
I didn't hear a second on any of those.
I would second Ed.
Okay. Anybody else? I'm not sure if I can make motions and second motions. I don't think I can do that.
Yeah, you
Can
can.
I?
Yeah.
Well, we have a motion and a second for Ed. I'm getting ready to Is there a motion and second? Is there a second for Mike? Mr. Michael? You made the motion, right? How about a motion for Bruce? The motion was made. Do we have a second? So Ed's it, then it's Ed. All those in favor of Ed signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. That's unanimous. The next order of business is approval of minutes for the meeting of August 14th, 2017. Have all of you had a chance to review those from the packet?
Yes. Yes. Comment on, just under item 5 on page 2, second paragraph down. It's pretty second sentence, excuse me, I'm sorry. I always been told that I'm loud enough with without amplification. The operating budget is not changed with the millage. I think we should insert the word at that time in August, that was the proposed millage rate.
And that-
It was not finalized yet.
And that was the meaning of my statement, that it hadn't changed from what
The
had
proposed.
been
yeah.
said,
Yeah, 'cause
just
the
prior to
council
that
had
time.
not, at that time, acted on it. I would just make the fact that we add that word proposed to the minutes.
I'll second that.
I don't think that requires a motion.
No, so.
Nah, you could just ask for a correction or additions to the minutes.
So
Any
I would
other,
ask for-
any other additions or deletions to the minutes as presented?
Motion to
So there's a motion to approve as amended. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Review of the fourth quarterly report for fiscal 17. Ken?
Okay, this is the report for the quarter ending September 30th, 2017, basically the end of our fiscal year. We've continued to keep the same formatting. We start off with a copy of the resolution and the budget changes that were typically being recommended to the council. In this case, they've already been approved. I went forward on January 10th and presented this report to the city council. I didn't want to delay until following this meeting. It wouldn't be until mid-February, so I took that initiative. The budget changes at the end of the year mostly consisted of cleaning up for projects that had been closed out or needed to be closed out. I will say right up front that there was some additional recommendations right at year end that included expenditures out of the renewal and replacement reserve. A good part of that was went towards the clubhouse at the golf course. And so you understand there were some allocations. Well, let me back up and say, okay, when we determined to go out for a new restaurateur to lease the restaurant, we expected that would take some capital investment, things to make it a facility that could be utilized by the new tenant. We did take the initiative and we went and got a $50,000 grant from the FAA because it's being on airport property, it qualified under their provisions. So we were able to attain $50,000 there, plus we allocated $185,000 of DST monies. Once we discovered there was a lot more that needed to be done to the restaurant to bring it up not only to code, but to remove some rather hazardous and unsightly conditions at the restaurant. So in addition to that, as we started doing those improvements, we were also surprised and shared with the council our concern that when we got into replacing receptacles or thought we were going to extend some wiring from one place to the other, we found, when they looked behind the walls and saw the wiring that was in place, it was felt like there was just a hazard that needed to be addressed. So also, a good part of this transfer was used because fixing up the restaurant facility itself highlighted that the restrooms in the hallway and the hallway itself were a real turnoff for someone thinking they were going to come to the nice restaurant. So we spent some money on doing the hallway, the doorways, and the restaurants outside of the restaurant facility itself. I wanted to make that clear. I mean, I've had some feedback from others about, we're spending a lot of money on that facility, and we are. We spent a tremendous amount on the golf course over the last 2 to 3 years. If you remember, we did the irrigation system, we redid the greens, we also did quite a bit of work on the cart paths, and now the clubhouse has been finished and is now up and running. Hopefully those investments will be attractive to customers and draw the maximum amount of revenue that we can hope for at the golf course. But just so you know, that's kind of a big part of the budget adjustments that were done during that quarter towards the end of the year. As I go page by page, it might be, if you have questions, if you want to stop me at that point, please let me finish my thoughts on a particular page so we don't get too sidetracked. On the next page, you have the graphics, and we talk about the general fund. We did quite well. As far as spending last year, the departments only spent 95% of their budgets. Our revenues, however, were only 98% of what we projected. Kind of within a reasonable variance, but overall, it did add monies to our reserves. What the reserve numbers on this page, the first graph to the left, you see a rather high number of reserve funds of 5.7 million. That's a bit misleading, and I'll get into that a little bit more when I talk about the page that covers the breakdown of the reserves. On the page following, we talk about special revenue funds, and I am pleased to note that the DST revenues are continue to grow, which is fortunate because we are relying on DST funds quite substantially to do infrastructure improvements and good things for the town. Our debt service provisions of any of our long-term debt we are in compliance and with any provisions or requirements about those obligations. The golf course, just try to set the stage for this coming year. We are going, we did increase our deficit this year, and to not get too complicated in explaining the accounting of this, the good thing is our capital assets on our balance sheet have grown. So we're looking better in terms of our net investment in capital assets. But we're using borrowed money. So that loan, if you recall back when we did the irrigation system, we allocated $700,000 to be borrowed from the building fund. So that a good part of that deficit is that liability for that repayment of that loan. The following page, we go into the airport and the building fund. The airport also shows a deficit. On the other hand, its revenue picture for this current year and for coming years looks more like a balanced budget and a realistic balanced budget. Partly due because of bringing in Hangar C and making some other changes to the tenants out there. The revenue amount is sufficient to not only cover operating, day-to-day operating costs, but we've also been able to continue repaying the loans that were made from the DST fund back to do the initial 2 hangars at the airport. And we've been able to address a loan that was given by general fund of $200,000. That balance at September 30th was down to $100,000. We've been steadily paying that down. And this year we're scheduled to pay $25,000 of that 100. So we're getting those internal loans at least addressed from airport revenues. The building fund looks very healthy, although you should consider that $700,000 of about almost 1.3 million in reserves is not available. So it's going to be a race between the time the economy requires us to need those reserves in the building fund and we can get some repayments coming back to the building fund. I usually don't go into the following pages that have all the detailed account kind of summaries, give you the actual numbers there. I do try hard to make sure that those balance out to the graphics that I'm showing. And I think you have page numbers at the bottom. I'm now on page 25 of 266, because this was lifted out of the council's agenda packet. On the capital project status report, I think we're doing quite better as far as managing the projects, getting them completed before year end. Some of the significant funds that are remaining include monies that were allocated for the Indian River Lagoon. You may remember several years ago, we took $100,000 of our increase in ad valorem taxes and said we were going to use it for improving the lagoon. So we did do that for a 3-year period, accumulated about $300,000. We spent some portion of that on a baffle box project. What we programmed in the current year budget is to apply the remainder of that, some $247,000, and making that available for septic to sewer connections that are outside the CRA area. Because we also have monies carried forward within the CRA area of $269,000. So there's ample funds there for the grant program to encourage people to connect their septic tanks to the county sewer. Other big projects were the Barber Street restrooms. They were not completed at the end of the year. And as I mentioned and talked about the clubhouse, the reconstruction there, that since then has pretty much been spent. One project that came in right at the end of the year and wasn't expended was the Oyster Point drainage. The following page reports on the general fund cash reserves. Excuse me. And this is where I wanted to make sure there was an understanding on what our reserves are. On the left column, I would start with the unaudited or the audited surplus on the financial statements back in September of 2016. So in 2017, we did add $259,948, simply the difference between our revenue and expenditure accounts. At year end, we replenished the R&R to the balance that was set as a maximum by the council of $275,000. And at year end, we had a couple of the minor projects that were carried over. And during the year, we allocated some money for the senior center restrooms project. Bottom line, at year end, we have about $4 million. Since September 30th, though, we've continued to spend on Hurricane Matthew. This was the docks project that took quite some time to get in place, but we have made a final payment in this fiscal year in 2018 of $350 for the docks, $350,000. We also paid the debris pickup cost to the contractor on Hurricane Irma of $364,000. So what I wanted to share with you is right now we are sitting on reserves of only about 3.3.
But that's pretty close to what your policy says you should have.
Actually, the policy now reads that we would keep a balance of $5 million.
Okay. They finally
We did
modified
change
that?
that wording with
That got modified?
in our adoption of the financial policies for this year.
Oh, okay.
We talked about doing that, yes, sir. So I've got,
But 5 years from now, you may get some of that money back from FEMA.
I hope before I pass on, Hurricane Matthew, just to kind of bring you up to date, because it does affect the reserve balances that we're looking at here, we have not received the first dime. In July, Frank Watanabe, our city engineer, who had headed up the reimbursements and getting all that recorded with FEMA that they owed us for debris pickup and all those costs, plus payroll time.
I was going to say, they usually reimburse that pretty quickly.
As I was going to explain, in July, Frank left us. At that point, they had pretty much loaded in all the reimbursement amounts, all the tickets and all the documentation required. With Frank departing, I inherited responding then to when the FEMA and the state reviewers started looking over that paperwork. I had quite a time of it, trying to follow behind Frank to find out where additional documentation may be that they were requesting and that type of thing. But I managed to struggle through that, got them their answers, and then it advanced to the next level. And then I was told I should go on the website and click a certain tab and actually get a form that requested the reimbursement. Even though we had applied for reimbursement, I now had to request it. Well, it took me about 5 or 6 weeks for them to fix something on their end, because the initial agreement between the city and the state had not been loaded into their files. It's been a frustrating process. Finally, I was able to get that done. It's been probably about a month ago now, and I was advised that, oh, there's one more step you have to do. And that I've been working on for about the last 3 weeks, is to reload all the information in support of our requested reimbursement.
You mean into their port, into their
Onto the
system?
same website where it sits already.
Right.
So I am ready to scan those documents. I've got them basically on my desk compiled now to load it in where it makes sense and checks out. They tell me that once all this information is in there, that it will be another 30 days before we get a check.
If it's that quick, I'd be amazed.
With this track record, I would expect a couple months, probably. I just can't say, but
Now,
anyway.
we're talking about just the early expenditures, right? Just your payroll for the police going out in public works, those things?
No, this with, well, yes, this is with Matthew, all the
Right.
debris
Those preliminary
pickup,
expenses,
all-
they usually pay pretty quickly if you get the paperwork into them right. And that's the key.
I'm a big believer in doing it right the first time, but everybody doesn't operate that way. So anyway, we got 3.3 million in reserves. I'm not losing sleep over it. It's a lot of money. However, if we have a storm in this coming season, if it's significant or a lot more than we've had with the past two storms, then yeah, I'm going to be very concerned.
Let's do a review of our insurance and make sure we got all these assets covered.
One thing we did on the, well, they won't cover for your time and your.
No, they don't pay for that.
Picking up the debris.
But the structures, well, they pay for debris off your covered site. You still got Pidgeot, they will cover debris charges off covered sites. Like debris that's removed from this site,
Right.
the golf course site, all those, they will reimburse you for debris removed from covered sites.
Correct, but the big cost is what's in the right-of-ways. One thing we did do is because the docks were involved and because their regulations pretty much say if you don't insure something that we reimburse you for, not only are you subjecting your current claim, but any future claim would not be covered by FEMA the second time around, which is reasonable. But they also say they would adjust what they paid you for the first time because you didn't take that action to obtain insurance.
Right.
We did obtain the insurance. The premium for the 4 docks that we added is about $50,000 a year. But we searched high and low for someone to
And how much
underwrite
you
it.
spend? A little over $1 million on those 4? Right at $1 million? That's 20 years at $50,000 a year.
It's about 1.3 or, yeah.
So that's about 23, the $50,000 a year it'll take you 23 or 24 years to get that $1.3 million back. And if something happened again and you don't have them insured,
Insurance is a gamble. But I wanted to make that, understood where we were or where we are on our reserves. How I hope that we can move the FEMA process along and get some of this reserve money replenished before the next event. On the investment report on the following page, we still have our monies divided into 3 pots. Earnings are trending a bit higher, and I think even higher than they were for the fourth quarter in the current day. Still not at rates that are significantly, they don't put a
we're
big
still
pot
less
of
than
revenue.
2%? Still less than 2%?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the state board returned the most at about 1.44 in that last quarter of last year. The balance of the report are the reports from each department, little bullet points about their activities during that last quarter. I'd open that up then, or open the report up to any kind of general questions you might have, or anything I can help you with.
That it?
That's my comments, yes.
Okay. Nancy, we'll start down at your end if you have any questions.
My only comment is the amount of the equipment and facilities repair fund of the general fund reserves that is being spent on the enterprise funds. That I am concerned about that, because there is quite a bit of it, not just for the golf course renovation, but a lot of other things. It seems that is becoming the catch-all to fund our enterprise funds, and I wouldn't want to see that continuing in the future, since that is general fund money.
That it?
That's it.
Bruce?
I'll say I support you, but it's a losing battle on the golf course. The golf course will never pay for itself. You know that, right? Do you agree?
Yes.
Yeah, right. So that's, we just.
Well, I disagree with that. It used to, before they raised the rent outrageous to the airport.
Oh, the golf course will never pay for itself. It can't fund its capital improvements.
It
They
used
don't
to.
make enough money. They
It-
won't drag
it-
enough revenue in.
Well, it used to when the rent was $50,000 a year to the airport, but what is it now, Ken? 150?
It's 106, I believe.
106?
It just won't, it can't put enough money away to ever fund its capital improvements. Ken, where do the proceeds from the sale of the old golf courts wind up? Is that in the golf course
The,
revenue? Is that what
Yes.
the miscellaneous revenue on the golf course line item
yeah,
is?
but some of that revenue came in after year end because we did put them on our Gov Deals auction site.
Yeah, it's drug in over.
So it's drug in, but it does show as miscellaneous income.
Okay, that's where that is, okay. Quick question, stormwater fee revenues. Will that ever increase significantly, or are those paid they're paid on lots too, right? That lots, even the lots in their property taxes pay that fee, right?
But there
Not
are
just-
there are credits given to those fees for those developments that have
Their
stormwater
own
drainage
system.
facilities
Yeah.
on their property. So once they can be certified that those are
Now, is an unimproved lot charge that fee as well, just like if it has a house on it?
yes.
The unimproved is charged a lesser amount.
Yes, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
It does not
But it-
pay
but it
what a
does-
lot with a home on it does.
No, but it does pay.
But it does pay, but it's not that much.
You got it.
Right.
Okay, so as houses get built, that revenue should go up a little bit, right? Yeah, but nothing major, right? Well, hang on, let me go through. Oh. Explain to me why the MIS department expenses were so low. What didn't we fund or pay for the MIS department last year? We had budgeted like 233 and we only spent 165, 71% of their budget was, I mean, I understand legal, that was Mr. Ginsburg's situation, but what happened to the MIS department that they only spent 71% of their budget?
Sounds to me like they had an unfilled position, maybe.
I don't recall.
And didn't they went through people. They made, of course,
We did have another position that that had left us during the fiscal year, probably early in the fiscal year, Julie. And that was left vacant for some time.
I think there were part-timers filling in, or an
We
intern
did
or
operate
two.
with part-timers, but I'm sure the cost wasn't. Yeah, that position wasn't really filled until right at the end of the fiscal
Okay.
year. So one position being vacant is
That'll help.
Probably the biggest part of your explanation.
Hey, in your capital projects report, are we going to remove like the years 12, 13, and 14 that are all closed out? They can like disappear? Or the other projects that are closed?
As hard as I try to bring all the documents I might need, I don't think our project report in the current year includes anything going, well, it does, excuse me. There is a project in the building department, their software upgrade, the Clear Village.
Well, I'm just looking at the report you've given us at the top. All the projects for 12, 13, and 14 are now closed. Can we just,
But you probably want 5 years' worth of history in that report, right? To line up, because your capital improvement budget and your comp plan and your budget requires a 5-year look for that capital improvement budget.
yeah, but that's moving forward.
No, yeah,
Yeah,
the
this-
capital improvement budget's looking forward, but in your history, you want to track those for a while through your
I don't want
budget.
to track, these are closed, they're
Well,
done.
now that they're
What do I wanna
closed,
look at 'em
but
for?
last year, before we had meetings on that, there was money in those funds, if you remember.
Well, yeah, but these are all closed out now, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
We can like take them off and,
And that's a result of this committee
right,
asking
we
to get.
asked them to move them
Yes.
along, close them up. Yeah, we got some others.
So they'll
report-
probably drop off.
The report starting this fiscal year won't show all the closed
Right,
ones.
they'll drop
Those
off.
were ones that were open during the year last fiscal year. But once they're closed, they won't carry forward.
Right, they'll drop off.
Yeah, there'll be a couple that I think will be 2016 projects. Not a lot of money involved in those, but yeah, we've
Okay.
done quite a,
Question, just clarifying, you made the comment about the Indian River Lagoon, the one from 215 that has 247,000 left, right? Is that money being taken out of capital and transferred somewhere with the other monies now that are going to the septic, or will it be left in this report?
it's only been on the report really as a project, just to make sure those funds were shown as being earmarked. Technically, it's not a capital project. I mean, it's grant.
It's more along a grant, right?
Yeah.
Grants to the
gets- but
individual, so.
well, I guess that's what I'm saying. It's kind of showing as a capital project, but isn't that money really involved now with the CRA more than anything, or?
Well, you've got two pieces, and I was trying to explain that.
Yeah,
under
right. That's,
Yeah, the
the,
CRA has money in that as well.
which is appropriated just for those in the CRA area.
Right.
These other funds, because it helps the lagoon and was originally labeled as being improvements to the lagoon, we've, in our budget process this year, we said, let's earmark those then for additional septic to sewer programs throughout the city. So we have well over $500,000 ready for those that want to take advantage of it and hopefully help the lagoon.
okay. Thank you.
Ed?
Ken, do we still have a pot of money that we set aside for all aboard Florida for the railroad crossings?
No.
Did we?
The last piece of that was actually spent on a railroad crossing at Barber Street. It was not the normal maintenance, you know, we spend about $5,000 on a couple of the crossings just for normal maintenance every year.
I remember that, yes.
But this was an extra bill of 100 and,
They probably had to do some major repair.
it was a major cost that they have the rights to pass on to us. So we applied that all aboard Florida money to that. At this point, there is nothing set aside.
Okay. All right. The golf course, I don't want to belabor it. Just as an aside, if you haven't been out to see the new restaurant and the repairs, it's pretty spectacular. They really did a good job. And apparently, the restaurant is doing very well. Supposedly, I've been a couple of times. It sure is an awful lot better than it used to be. And for those of you who wonder why we spent all that money, Joe Griffin had a whole bunch of pictures taken as they tore the place apart. All I can say is it was beyond horrible. It really was awful.
25 years of no maintenance.
Since the day it was built, I think. Will the golf course pick up money? That's hard to tell. I will say this, there are moves afoot that I'm aware of to promote not only the golf course, but the golf course restaurant. The airport website soon going to promote it, all things being equal. And to promote the business and draw people in, we need to get the word out. What's happened to that golf course? The greens, the irrigation, the clubhouse, and so on and so forth. Because apparently, and I'm not a golfer, but apparently a fair number of people have felt over the years that the place is pretty run down. Well, it's all spruced up and it's really nice now. So enough of the golf course, just hope it turns into revenue. And let's see, with the railroad thing, okay. I'm done for now.
Andrea?
All right, I've heard from a couple of golfers, and they love what you have done out there. They say it's spectacular, top notch, very happy. So these are some of the golfers that, you know. All right, I have a couple of things because we have a pump that I believe is a federal pump that is part of the irrigation that has not been working, for the last 10 years. And I was just wondering if we could, it's a federal, but it's in our canal system. And it's a pump that everybody is complaining is turned off and it's supposed to be on 24/7. But let me tell you, you can't turn that pump on because they put an underwater pump in where there should be an above water pump. And when that pump is on, nobody sleeps 24/7 in that general area, and it's out there out in the Highlands. And I've had people come up, you know, to the Natural Resource Board and tell us about the fact that that pump needs to be turned on. But we need to make sure, it's 10 years now, so I'm thinking it's gotta be on the federal rotation list by now, right? And we should, if not, we really need to get that pump worked on and get that pump with the right pump in there and get it turned on to help with the drainage. And, you know, it's affecting the Highlands because we have very poor drainage out there. And it needs, our streets need to have the water pumped off. It's fast. I still have water in my drainage ditch. My drainage ditch has not been dry since the hurricane. It's wet.
You know where the pump is she's talking about?
It's the
That's way beyond my pay grade.
Yeah. Where's it located, Andrew?
It's out in the Highlands, and it's supposed to take the water from the canal system and pump it into the bigger canal, and it's been off for 10 years now. And it's a federal pump. And Frank installed it. So Frank installed the wrong pump. And we have been paying for that for the last 10 years now. They come up to the Natural Resource Board and talk about it all the time. So it's those.
I'm not familiar with where that's located.
I don't
It's
have a
out
clue.
by
I don't know how to
the,
help you. That's not my field of expertise, and not.
Refer to Joe.
Okay, but maybe we can, because it is affecting our drainage system, we can find out what pump it is and maybe put money into next year's budget in case we have to have a you know, whatever the federal government will require for it to meet their standard. It is part of our canal system, though, so we should know about it.
I didn't think
not
Frank was here.
Personally.
Frank
you
wasn't
know.
even here 10 years, was he?
No.
Okay, but that's one thing, is the pump. And then the other thing is, when the Boy Scouts did their oyster mat project, they took money from having a baffle box put in. So I would kind of like to see maybe some of those monies that we have in the Indian River Lagoon maybe go towards getting another baffle box, because, and the other thing I keep hearing, rumors, is that we're not maintaining our baffle boxes that we have. I would sure like to put those rumors to rest and say, hey, we are doing a good job in maintaining those baffle boxes. But I don't know. I have no idea. But I would like to, you know, I keep hearing them, that we're not maintaining our baffle boxes. So I like to see money put in to make sure that we do maintain our baffle boxes, and maybe we can get another one, because the oyster mat project took the money that we had set aside to put in another baffle box. And then I have the chemicals. Now that anytime you want to talk about chemicals with Mr. Watanabe, he just unloads a ton of paperwork on you that is superfluous, but it supports his point of view. And you know, I don't need that. I don't need to go through a ton of paperwork. What I need is somebody to stop putting Roundup into our canal system, and we need to get better chemicals. And we need to talk to St. John's, and I don't know what kind of budget
Excuse
we
me,
have for
Andrew, I think you've
chemicals.
jumped the gun on us. We're on item number 8, which is the review of the fourth quarterly report that Ken went over. It sounds to me like you're getting into number
I'm
9
sorry.
already.
I did get into that.
Yeah,
I am
we're-
sorry.
We're not there yet.
Not there yet. Okay.
So if you've got anything on the fourth quarterly report,
No.
That's where we
Golf
are.
course is in good shape, and everybody loves a golf course. They do miss some of the trees, but they love the golf course. I did, sorry.
that's okay. It took me a while to figure out what was going on here. Okay, Harry, you're up.
I have no concerns with the budget at this time.
Michael?
Myself either.
Well, the fund balance is down, but it went down pretty far. But I think we're still okay. I'm not overly concerned right now. I think we're okay. I'm pretty satisfied with
I really thought he
with the way it
down.
went. Yeah. And you do a review of your insurance and make sure all the assets that we have are insured, so we can get insurance money in first, because you get money from them long before you get FEMA. Now we'll go to general discussion by members for thoughts for the upcoming budget year. Now you can
Oh,
finish there, Andrea, where you were.
I'm so sorry. I really
That's
thought that's
okay.
where you were.
That's okay. If you could continue your thought, if I didn't interrupt your whole train of thought entirely.
Oh, no.
You were on a roll there. You were doing so well.
Okay, all right. And it is, again, from the Natural Resource Board, they keep talking about the chemicals. They really want us to stop putting Roundup in, and Frank has chosen to put in the cheapest stuff, and that's not smart. When I first moved here, we had nesting birds over at the park, over at the garden park. We had 2, and now we have no nesting birds. And we need to start being smarter and not cheap about what chemicals we're putting into the canal system. And thank you. That was the end.
Is that it? Harry?
I just have 2 things. One, for the last 2 fiscal years, we've talked about the intersections at Barber and Joy Haven and Concha. Myself and previous board members, advisory members, have expressed a concern that we need to do something about traffic control there. Frank Watanabe had come back a couple of times and really had no answers for us. And a lot of it's due to the visibility with the bridge, the walking bridge there. And I've noticed too now that the bridge is starting to show some disrepair. Boards are coming up. The lights have been out since the hurricane. So at night it's very dark. And there used to be a pole lighting at night, a street light there. When they put in new poles, they didn't put a light there. So not only is it a dangerous two intersections, but there are no street lighting in that area. And the lights that were on the bridge for pedestrians, with them being out, makes it even darker. I don't know if we need to, if there's a way to remedy that situation, and if it will take additional funds, or funds are earmarked to do something for bridge maintenance and to do something for traffic control. And that's pretty much all of the concerns I have for right now.
Thank you. Mr. Michael?
I have no comments right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed?
There we go. Our favorite subject, roads. I don't know whether any of you have seen it. About 2 months ago, or maybe a little longer, the city council finally got a new pavement assessment. And I'll get a copy to Ken, and we can get it out to you if you don't have it. It's a single page, and it covers the next 5 years with specifics of what streets, the length, and the estimate of how much it's going to cost. So the question's going to come, and the city council dealt with one of these streets the other night when a lot of the residents came in and were jumping up and down trying to get their street paved. So it went to it was on the top of the list, and it's going to get done very shortly. But there are other streets that may come up in the near future, and it's something that we've got to keep our eye on, I think, as we go through the budget into June and July, to see where we are and what we're going to recommend for appropriations this year. There is a lot of money being spent in the new year. More specifically, $451,000 is budgeted for Indian River Drive. That's a big project. And some monies have already been allocated for engineering and drainage on that one. And then there's another 330-odd thousand for about 1, 2, 3, 4, I say about 8 streets to get them done in this new year. And then it goes on from there. But this may be needed to be juggled, and if you don't know it, there is Mr. Griffin, the city manager, has jiggled his staff, and there's a different person running the Department of Public Works now. And I think we will probably see some of this changed around as that person gets involved in it. In case you don't know, it's Scott Baker, who was the airport manager, and now he's running DPW and the airport. So we'll probably see some changes there as time goes on. And I should have asked Ken on the previous thing, but I didn't. Is the audit done?
I was talking at the end of last week with the auditors. We're pretty much on schedule, although there's work I yet to have provided them. Things like the notes to the financial statements and the transmittal letter. They basically have all the numbers crunched. I don't have a first draft yet. But if I can get back away from FEMA for a breather and get on to developing the notes and the boilerplate type of things that we include in the CAFR. They should be on time, on schedule, or we should be on schedule to deliver the report on March, the second meeting in March, which I try to do better every year, but it's not happening this year with all of the hullabaloo.
Yeah. Oh, and one other thing, in case some of you didn't catch it or didn't know, the city last Wednesday night agreed to expend $750,000 to buy a piece of property on the waterfront. The little old motel next to
Ruth Sullivan's place.
next to the Main Street dock. So that's going to jiggle some things around in the budget this year.
Yeah, the proposed funding for that was the majority out of DST funds. I think it was a $500,000 out of DST and $250,000 out of the CRA.
But that's on both sides of the street, right? That property has some that's right on the river as well?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought it did.
And that was the prime motive, is to protect that east side.
I think
piece.
that was a good purchase, too. That was,
The only other, no, yeah, for the moment, that's all I've got.
thanks, Ed. Bruce?
Well, Ken, let me just follow up on the hotel purchase. It kind of indicated that the monies were going to be shifted from the Public Works garage compound. Is that correct? So that's in the budget book for this year, page 200. Would I be correct on that?
You are correct.
And that's the Public Works garage compound, right?
Yes, the majority of
So
those.
there's only $100,000 for this year budgeted for that, right?
And that's just for engineering, preliminary
So where
costs.
does the other 100,000 come from, the other 200? Or we're just shifting everything to the right?
Some of the costs is shown in 2019 would be shifted over to 2020, some maybe in 2020 shifted
Yeah, we're just
if necessary
Going
to
to move
21.
everything over to the right for that.
Yes.
Okay. Well, my only other comment is I don't think we should discuss next year's budget, as the council will be discussing it at the 14th meeting. They will come up with
Yeah,
their
we
priorities.
really need to wait till we get something to look at.
Hopefully, we will get priority and direction from them as to what their thoughts are, so.
Nancy? Thanks, Bruce. Okay. I really don't have much either. As I recall, last year, I tried to get an extra $1 million put in the budget to spend to pave roads. I wasn't very successful on it, but looking at I haven't seen the report that Ed is talking about, but I know $1 million is not a drop in the bucket to what we need to do on the roads. We're gonna have to spend, we should be spending at least $1.5 million a year on fixing these roads until we get caught up. That's my opinion. I haven't looked at the report. Maybe the report comes a little closer to, we were kind of shooting in the dark last year till we got that one report, and then most of the streets on that, the local streets, were not even put into numbers at all. And the street I live on is atrocious. It needs work too. A lot of the little local streets need work. But I will wait till we get a tentative budget back and get to do that, and we'll be able to do that. We move on now to review of the budget calendar. Did everybody get a chance to look at the budget calendar that was in the packet?
Could I just add one thing about,
Sure.
to what you just said about the roads?
Sure.
If any of you travel on Barber Street, east of Schumann, it goes maybe a third of a mile, and it takes a 90-degree turn. And you have to know what you're doing if you're not watching the signs, if you're a newcomer here. And back a few years ago, there was a move afoot to cut through that vacant lot and straighten Barber Street out. Well, Barber Street east of Schumann is pothole heaven. And I've said something to a couple of people in the city about it, and so far, nothing's happened. And the potholes are getting worse. And that's one of our main streets coming in. And if you drive in and you go by Publix, you kind of wonder what kind of a hick town you're coming into. It really isn't very good. And that whole area needs to be addressed, at least I would recommend that it be addressed, so that Barber Street is what we've done for the whole rest of it, everything west of Schumann. So that's something that we ought to consider because it is a key street in the city. Enough said.
Well, if you extended the Barber Street, wouldn't you have to then contend with a railroad crossing to be set up?
Well, there's no doubt that you have to widen.
Well, there was a plan just to take the curve out and kind of cut the corner, but I don't think they ever.
That's before the railroad.
Yeah, way before.
That's
the
a half a
railroad.
mile before the
Yeah,
railroad.
way before the
No,
railroad.
I'm
Way
talking
before
about
the-
right at the curve. If you extended it straight instead of going to the right.
If you drive down there, you'll see that if you're going east, there's a vacant lot at the sharp curve.
Right.
And that was looked into and dropped.
Yes, it
Didn't
was.
go anywhere. Citizens came in and talked about people driving into their driveway because they didn't know where they were going, so on and so forth. But as I said, that is a key entrance.
I don't disagree. I was just thinking if you extended it instead of making the right turn, then you've got to deal with getting the FEC Railroad and others involved with the railroad crossing.
The railroad crossing's already again on Barber Street
No, the
down there.
railroad crossing is another half a mile.
No,
there.
not where he's talking about.
It's another half a mile.
Yeah, but the railroad crossing's on farther east from there.
Yeah.
Way farther east from where he's talking about.
You're thinking of a different place. I'm talking, you go by the school,
You go down
maybe
about
a
two
quarter of a
traffic,
mile, and then you have a sharp right-hand turn.
and
a
it takes you
90
right
degree.
down across the railroad tracks to
No, it's
Publix.
not. It's a half a mile east of the railroad tracks.
You go all the way past
West
the
of the
trailer
railroad
park.
tracks. You're nowhere near the railroad tracks area. You're thinking of something else.
You're talking about going past the school, going 2-3 blocks, and then the road Barber curves or takes a sharp
Curves, it's a
right.
90-degree curve.
It's a sharp
Exactly.
turn. It's a sharp
Yeah.
turn.
And you're proposing that it not make the right turn, that it be extended,
They straighten it right out in that vacant lot.
and that's going to take you straight into somewhere along there to the railroad tracks,
No.
which,
No, if you go that far, you'd have to go through the trailer park. You'd have to go through that trailer
Yeah,
park to
let's
get.
not, this is budget. Let's not get involved in.
Yeah.
This is just a project,
Right.
okay? So anyway, that's something that,
Probably all they'll get done, we're lucky if we get the potholes patched.
yeah.
That's what I would shoot for.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's get back to the,
Just one thing, there is a citizens hotline that you can call and report your potholes. And if you report these potholes, they will come out and fix them for you. It's a citizens hotline. Do you know what the number is? It's 581, right, 1111, was that it? So call for your potholes and get them fixed.
okay. Now let's do the budget calendar.
Okay.
Everybody get a chance to look at it in the packet.
I would note to Larry that there is I had put Monday, February 19th on the agenda. The calendar in your packet does say the 12th. I moved it up because the 19th is a holiday.
Well, I think really all we're concerned about on there is when our meetings are
Well, that's what I'm saying. This would be our next meeting then
on
would
the
be
12th.
February. Will be February 12th, yes. It was on the calendar that way, but I just erred in putting it on the agenda.
Yeah, that's what's on my calendar, the 12th. We've got 7 meetings scheduled, right? And I think that's what we had last year. The rest of that calendar really doesn't apply to us. That's for you and city council and all your budget and administrative functions you have to do. We're only concerned about the days we have to meet and go over the budget.
And this is presented as a guideline. It's not cast
Right.
in concrete as long as
Right.
we don't interfere with other meetings or
Right.
can keep on schedule.
I think we had to bump a meeting last year. We had a conflict and had to change a meeting last year. I think Ed had some issue and we changed a meeting. But we can always address that.
I do have hard copies of the calendars if y'all want a extra
Yeah.
one to post or something.
Yeah, I printed it out of the packet. Okay, anything else from staff, Ken?
I think we've covered quite a bit tonight. Thanks.
Okay, we're to the item number 12. Any other business for the good of the order? We stand adjourned.